Have you ever felt like a lack of confidence was holding you back? Well, you are definitely not alone. Today, we're diving into a book that tackled this exact issue decades ago and became a global phenomenon, The Power of Positive Thinking by Norman Vincent Peale. We're going to unpack the simple but incredibly powerful techniques it offers to unlock your potential. Okay, so to really get why this book was such a game changer, we have to start with this one surprising number. For Norman Vincent Peale, this was a massive wake-up call. So get this. A university went out and asked 600 students to name their single biggest personal problem. And the results? They were pretty shocking. An overwhelming majority, we're talking 3 out of every 4 students, all pointed to the exact same thing.
Yup, a lack of confidence. And Peale knew right away this wasn't just a student thing. No, this was an epidemic of self-doubt, with millions and millions of people just going through life feeling, in his words, defeated and afraid.
And that observation, this widespread insecurity and fear, that's really the jumping-off point for his entire book. He saw a world just full of people who didn't believe in themselves. Peale saw this as a huge tragedy, but here's the key. He thought it was completely preventable. So he didn't write some dense philosophical book. Instead, he created what he called a practical, direct-action, personal improvement manual. His goal was simple: offer a real solution. Okay, so if the problem is this defeated mindset, what did Peale think was causing it? Well, it all boils down to one simple, incredibly powerful idea. Your reality is shaped by what you allow to take up space in your mind. He tells this great little story about 2 men to explain it. One guy fills his head with all the bad news and worries of the day, and he sleeps terribly. The other guy, he intentionally focuses on peaceful, positive thoughts, and he wakes up feeling powerful and energized. Peale's point is crystal clear. You get to choose what you focus on. He shares the story about a golf pro that just nails a core truth. The obstacles out there in the world are almost never as hard as our own minds make them out to be. The real struggle, the real rough on the golf course of life, it's all in your head. So how do we actually win this internal battle? Well, this is where Peale gets super practical. His prescription is a series of tangible techniques he calls mind cures, and they're designed to actively reshape how we think. For example, take the story of a businessman who was convinced he'd lost everything. Peale had him list his real assets, not money, but his family, his health, his integrity, and suddenly the man realized he was still incredibly wealthy in all the ways that truly mattered. It was a total shift in perspective. Here's another great technique from a traveling salesman. He literally used affirmation cards with positive phrases on them to replace his fear and defeat thoughts with thoughts of faith and courage. And the result? His performance, and really his whole outlook on life, was completely transformed. Okay, this is probably one of the most memorable lines in the entire book. It's this incredible piece of advice from a trapeze instructor to a student who was just frozen with fear, high up in the air. So what does that really mean for us? It's all about making an emotional commitment to your goal first. You have to see yourself succeeding. You have to truly believe it's possible. Peale's argument is that once you make that decisive mental leap, your body, your actions will naturally follow to make it real. Fear just can't paralyze you if your heart is already on the other side. And this brings us to what's really at the core of Peale's philosophy. For him, the ultimate source of all this positive power, it wasn't just about your own willpower. It was something much, much bigger. Brace yourself for this number. According to a drug company executive, Peale quotes, Americans were taking about 19 million sleeping pills, not per year, per night. Peale used this staggering stat to show just how deep the anxiety in the country ran. So to combat that anxiety and plug into a real source of peace, Peale prescribed a method he called prayer power. And for him, prayer wasn't about passive wishing. No, it was an active, creative force you could use. He breaks it down into a super simple 3-step formula. First, you picturize. You create this crystal clear mental image of what you want. Then you pray. You spiritually hand that image over. And the final, crucial step is to actualize. You hold onto that image with total faith, acting as if it's already happening. All right, so let's tie all of this together. What's the final takeaway? How do all these ideas really combine into a formula for a happier life? Peale tells this incredible story about a lawyer who said his wife was in the manufacturing business. And what did she make? Her own unhappiness. This idea that we are often the primary creators of our own misery is absolutely central to his message.
So what are the raw materials going into this unhappy factory? Peale says it's just a few toxic ingredients: resentment, ill will, fear, and worry. He believed that if your mind is soaked in that stuff, it can only produce one thing: misery.
And that brings us to the bottom line. For Peale, this isn't just a nice, hopeful idea. He frames it as a fundamental law of the universe, just like gravity. Your thoughts, he argues, directly create your reality. It's that simple. Positive in, positive out. You know, this entire philosophy is summed up just perfectly on a little business card that a friend of Peale's used to carry around. He called it the way to happiness. It's basically a simple, actionable cheat sheet for living this way day in and day out.
And that leaves us with the book's big, enduring challenge. It asks us to take a hard look at our own mental habits, our own internal factories, and ask a tough question. What kind of reality are we actively building for ourselves, right now, in this moment? That's our explainer on the power of positive thinking. Thanks for watching.